Speaker, Mr. Whitaker.
Wonderful introduction. Those very kind words. Thank you, President Hodge, Board of Trustees, faculty of Miami University, for extending this invitation to me today for this very special occasion. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I understand that way back when most of you were freshmen, a speaker came to campus and said that he had visited universities throughout the world, but that Miami, with its red brick buildings, its green quads, its towering steeples, Miami was essentially the most beautiful college campus you'd ever seen. Perfect place for learning and for reflection and fun. I'm so fortunate to have been able to attend here. Even the Dalai Lama found his own little slice of heaven on earth right here in Ohio. So I was excited to see Miami for myself. This place is really beautiful. It's an incredible honor to be able to connect with you and to be with you in the company of your friends and your family. On occasions like this, as the President said, we come to celebrate your achievements, and it's easy to forget about those people who've done so much for us, those friends, those families, and make sure that today you, again, reach out to them and thank them for all the work that they've done, because this is their day too. It's an honor to be here with my good friend Mr.Whitaker, too. He wrote that post article that Charlie spoke about, and he was that alumnus who spoke here on this podium last year's commencement speech. So, Miami University class of 2014, both you and I, we have really big shoes to fill. To all of you graduates, congratulations. Today, it's a culmination of the years of hard work that you've done here in Miami. The task getting in here in itself was a difficult one, but graduating, it's taken about 1,000 hours at King Library, maybe 100 midterms and finals, and probably a lot of all-nighters, and maybe one or too many slices at Bruno's. You should be incredibly proud of what you've accomplished. You are an extraordinary group of young men and women. Today is a celebration of your achievement, but it's also a ceremony to signify the end of one chapter of your life and the beginning of another. And I'm sure you realize by now that life is a never-ending story of change and procession. Even with your 4 years in Miami, actually, especially your 4 years in Miami, I'm sure that you're aware that you've changed and you've grown. There's so many more changes to come. Before all that, you all have one more day to soak it all in. One more day, your friends and classmates, all 4,000 of you, together on campus, here for the last time. The connection that you share with your classmates right now is probably more salient than it's ever been before. All of you in this stadium, in your academic regalia, all of you experiencing the same bittersweet emotions, will come with the knowledge that you'll soon be leaving this place after 4 years. Excitement for the future, and nostalgia for the past. As graduates of the class of 2014, you're not only connected to the fellow Redhawks across the country and around the world. This month, hundreds of thousands of young men and women will also don the cap and gown and prepare for this same journey. Today, you share a special bond with all of them as well, as you do with the millions of men and women who've done the cap before you, and the billions who will do it after. And in a sense, this commencement ceremony is another opportunity to reflect on the chapters in your individual lives that are beginning and ending. It's an occasion for us as a community to collectively take stock of the changing world around us. A chance for us to pause and look back at where we've been and look forward to where we're going, because just as your lives are tales of change and progress, the story of humankind is one of constant evolution. And this year, in this place, it's an especially appropriate time to reflect on the past and contemplate the future. This year, Miami University is commemorating the 50th anniversary of the freedom summer. And 50 years ago, another group of young men and women were getting ready to leave Miami, go out to the world. Maybe some of them are still here today. So much about them was probably very similar to you. They attended a ceremony just like this one. They shared a very great sense of excitement, also a sense of anxiety about what was going to happen, what was going to come. And yet so much of the world that they lived was very different from the one that we're living in right now. It was 1964. It was just a few years after I was born. Racism was still mainstream in many parts of the country. Segregation and Jim Crow was still de jure in the South, and still de facto in many places in the North. African American voters were disenfranchised. And so, that summer, some of those Miami graduates returned to the campus to help change that in whatever way they could. They were joined by thousands of volunteers from colleges around the country. Men and women, blacks and whites, Jews and Gentiles. They trained on the western campus just a few hundred yards from where we're standing right now. Their mission was to go down to Mississippi, where only 7% of the voting age African Americans were registered, and work with the local communities to help register and provide support to the disenfranchised citizens. That was the summer of '64, the same summer that Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act. It was a year before he would sign the Voting Rights Act. It's the summer that Martin Luther King Jr. led 300,000 people in a march to the Lincoln Memorial. 1964 was 10 years after Earl Warren wrote that separate but equal is inherently unequal. His Brown versus Board of Education decision, the case that Thurgood Marshall argued before the court, and the case which today is the anniversary of. These are some of the key facts and figures of the civil rights movement. You're probably recounted them many times. You studied them in school, learned the names, memorized the dates. As well you should. They are essential parts of our history. These are the leaders and the milestones of a different chapter in the evolution of society. But there's something else, something equally essential, that the names and the dates leave out. There's an old proverb that asks the question, what is truer than truth? Answer is a story. The story that lives inside the truth. When we remember our past only in terms of milestones, just the names and dates, we leave out the stories. And the stories are in many ways truer than the facts that I just recorded to you. Because while you may know what happened, if you learn the names and dates, you don't understand what happened, what it meant for the people who lived it, and what it means to you, unless you hear the stories. So instead, I could recount to you the events of the Freedom Summer in a slightly different way. I could describe an old, run-down schoolhouse in Holly Springs, Mississippi, where a young teacher from Georgia opened the doors every day that summer to welcome girls and women of all ages who were denied by the government a proper education and who were hungry, were starving for knowledge. I could ask you to imagine how hot it was inside the little church in Hattiesburg, where volunteers would meet at the end of the night to recount the day's activities, and how beautiful it must have sounded when they joined hands together at night and sang in one voice, "We shall overcome." Or I could tell you about the student from Queens College, New York, a couple of years younger than most of you. How scared he must have been when he and two of his fellow volunteers were driven off by the deputy sheriff in the middle of nowhere. And how far away from home he must have felt when he saw men with white hoods and guns waiting for him, and what must have been going through his head when one of them pulled the trigger. I can tell you stories like that. There's another reason, in many ways a very urgent reason, why these stories are more true than just the names and dates, why these are especially relevant for you as you embark on your journey through the gates. And this reason has been literally right under your nose for the last 4 years. You've walked on it, or rather around it, practically every day since you arrived as a freshman at Miami. Right here in the center of the campus, emblazoned on the ground, in the middle of the academic quad is the Miami seal. And in the center of that seal are the Latin words, prodesse quam conspici, to accomplish rather than be inconspicuous. When I look at the black and white photos taken during the Civil Rights Movement, We tend to focus on the Martin Luther Kings. It's easy to ignore the hundreds of thousands of anonymous heroes who marched beside him, whose names are lost to history. It's even easier to forget that each one of these people, they had lives, just like yours, filled with love and family, pain and regret, hopes and dreams. Each one of them had a story. If we never tell their stories, if we live our life thinking that the only people who ever accomplished anything worth remembering are the ones we read about in the history books, then we send a message to our children that their actions can only be meaningful if they are widely observed, if they are conspicuous. Nothing could be further from the truth. Because the truth is that every student who was a part of the Freedom Summer, every citizen who marched on Washington, every single person in this country who stood up for justice in whatever way he could, they changed the world. We see this every day. Look around you at the diversity, the inclusivity of the society that we share. We are living, breathing proof of the power that these anonymous heroes had. Sometimes the hardest truths to see are the ones right in front of our eyes, the things that are so common, so self-evident, that we have to come to take them for granted. Our day-to-day lives are shaped by the sum of countless inconspicuous acts. Acts of sacrifice from generations of anonymous heroes who came before us. Acts of love from our parents. Acts of kindness from random strangers. Behind every worthwhile human achievement, big or small, there is at least one small act of kindness. Maybe Picasso fell in love with painting when one day his father brought him a brush and some canvas and gave it to his young son to play with. It's possible that Gandhi would have simply pursued his career as a lawyer had a friend not loaned him a copy of Thoreau's Civil Disobedience. Perhaps a few years ago, there was a high school senior who was getting lost in the maze of college applications and didn't know who was right for her, and seeing this young woman's distress, a teacher or a guidance counselor gave her a pamphlet from Miami University and told her that this might be a good fit. Today, she will become a Miami graduate. Sometimes an inconspicuous act of kindness can make all the difference. One single act, one single action can cause ripples that are felt to the other side of the world. And this means that how you choose to live your life, the decisions you make, the causes you pursue, the stories you tell, these things will matter. Like most Americans, you will spend likely the better part of your waking lives from this point forward at work. For many of you, your career will be one of the main things that defines the short amount of time that you'll spend on this planet. And one problem with this is that most job descriptions are divorced of any human elements. Take, for instance, the job description of an accountant. One, she will go over the billing process. Two, she'll make sure that the checks are signed at a certain time of the month. And three, she will foreclose on any outstanding accounts. But there's something important missing from this description. Nowhere does it say that the accountant will be kind, or empathetic, or caring. That she will treat others as she would like others to treat herself. Nowhere does it say that the accountant will show compassion for the person whose house she is foreclosing, perhaps even giving them an extra day, to come up with the money they need to save their home. There's nothing wrong with letting our work play a central role in our lives, but we can never allow our job descriptions to define the manner in which we live our lives. When you succeed, and more importantly, when you fail, you have to allow your moral strength, your understanding of what is right and good to be what defines and guides you. Because though your actions may seem inconspicuous, their consequences will be profound. A single bee, even a queen, on its own, is powerless. At the most, it can inflict some mild discomfort. But when bees swarm, when they gather in great numbers around a single purpose, they can bring down an elephant. When people swarm, we can topple tyrants, change governments. We can achieve anything. It wasn't just Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks or Thurgood Marshall who ended segregation and who fought against this country's legacy of discrimination. That took millions of individuals, a swarm of freedom fighters, united around a common goal. Each took his own approach to the battle and fought for his own reasons, but they shared a single purpose. Any one of these individuals, even King, on his own, would have been ineffective. But together, they were able to achieve something remarkable. Together, they brought justice. That was the swarm that many of our counterparts, many of your counterparts 50 years ago were preparing to join. Now, our world has changed a lot since then. The battles that began during the Civil Rights Movement have not been completely won, but it's impossible to deny the progress that we've made. Racism and discrimination still exist in our society, but hopefully we've been able to push it a little towards the fringes. And here you are, the class of 2014, on this day, together, as you become part of this proud Miami legacy, together in the stadium, where you can lift your voices in unison and be heard for miles. The story of humanity is one of constant evolution. What chapter will you write? What swarms will you join? What swarms will you create? In graduating from a school with such a rich tradition of social justice, you no doubt have a lot to live up to. But you're also entering the real world in an era where you are equally and unequally uniquely equipped to handle this challenge. Like no other generation in human history, you and your peers are enabled and empowered to communicate with each other, to unite around a common purpose, and to take action. The pace at which human beings continue to become more connected to each other is truly astonishing. Right now, I saw earlier, girl, she was holding her smartphone, taking pictures, taking videos. They'll be uploaded to Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Vine, Vimeo. And by the time I finish speaking, those images will have been seen by your relatives in Chicago, friends in California, even strangers in Europe, China, all over the world. Possibly 1 million people around the planet will have seen them before the sun sets today. You know, when television was first invented, many people dismissed it as a parlor trick. It was a fancy gadget that they could show off at parties, but that they thought ultimately had no meaning or purpose. But today, TV is a billion-dollar industry that is consumed by 1 billion people worldwide. It's at least partially regulated by every government in the world, and it's completely censored by some. The technology is powerful, and the rate at which we're developing it and the extent to which we're incorporating it into our very biology means that each one of you is becoming more powerful every day. Each one of you has the power to reach people across the globe, the power to rally around the causes you believe in, the power to swarm, the power to change the world. Have you noticed that when you see a movie, and you go to a movie, and you watch it with other people in the theater, sometimes the jokes seem a little funnier, the tension is just a little more palpable, the drama is a little more poignant. When other people laugh, when they gasp, when they cry, even when they cough, it tells you something about the film that you're watching. And when you aggregate that, over the hundreds of people in the theater, they collectively expand your intelligence by watching that film with you. They have taught you something about the human condition. Think what it would be like to watch a movie with 1 million people, with 5 million people, 50, 1 billion, more. Can you imagine how much our intelligences could be expanded if we could share our experiences with the collective consciousness of humanity? We are living in an age where technological advances are increasingly making such a level of connectivity possible. To be able to feed off the intelligence of the entire human race, that's no parlor trick, that is power. And now, can you imagine what would happen if you took that incredible power, the sum of all human knowledge and insight, and instead of just watching a movie together, we challenge it to solve our most pressing problems. Challenges that may seem insurmountable right now. Fighting global poverty, stemming climate change, ending war, curing cancer. There's a line from a play called Merrily We Go Along. It goes, "We are standing on the threshold of the future. We got to be the luckiest people who ever lived. Do you guys realize that now we're going to be able to do anything? Anything we dreamed of? What a time to be starting out. What a time to be alive. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that you cannot do if you do it together. If you recognize the power that your connection to your fellow human beings can have, and if you amass a large enough swarm, there is no challenge that you, each one of you, cannot surmount. From this stadium, you can lift your voices in unison and sing a song that will be heard on the other side of the world. 50 years ago, the graduates of Miami joined the Mississippi churches with young people from around the country. And they sang, "We shall overcome." And together, their spirit helped free a nation. And what will your song be? The education that you've gained here is a gift. Like most people your age, for a few years, you've had at your fingertips devices that can deliver to you in seconds virtually any piece of human knowledge ever created.
And the Board of Trustees of Miami University, and under the authority vested in me by the state of Ohio, the honorary degree, Doctor of Fine Arts. I now present you with the diploma and request that you be vested with your doctoral hood. Congratulations.